Good morning, everyone. Have you ever felt like everything around you is falling apart? As if the world is closing in, and no matter how hard you try, things just aren't working out. If you've ever been there, or if you're there right now, I have good news for you. It's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that something bigger is coming. Throughout history, before something great happens, there's always a moment of resistance, a struggle, of uncertainty. But if you recognize the signs, you'll see that what looks like an ending is actually a new beginning. Let's talk about those signs. We're taught from an early age that rejection is something to fear. It stings. It feels personal. You put your heart into something, a job application, a business idea, a relationship, only to have it slip through your fingers. You wonder what went wrong. Maybe you weren't good enough. Maybe you should have done more, tried harder, been smarter. But what if rejection isn't the end of the road? What if it's a sign that you're meant for something bigger? Closed doors aren't punishments. They're redirections. They force us to look beyond what we thought we wanted and push us toward what we actually need. But in the moment, that's hard to see. The frustration of losing something we were so sure about can make it feel like everything is working against us. We question our worth. We start to doubt the path we're on. But if we step back, if we really look at those moments, we'll realize that closed doors often lead us exactly where we're meant to be. Steve Jobs is a perfect example of this. Imagine pouring your entire life into building something, only to be told you're no longer needed. That's exactly what happened to him when he was fired from Apple, the company he co-founded. Most people would have taken that as a crushing defeat, a sign to walk away, but he didn't. Instead, he used that setback as fuel. He went on to start another company, NextT, and also acquired Pixar, which later became one of the most successful animation studios in the world. And then, years later, Apple, his original company, brought him back. But he wasn't the same person who had left. He had grown. He had learned. And because of that, he returned stronger, transforming Apple into the powerhouse it is today. If he had never been fired, would Apple have become what it is? Would the iPhone, the iPad, or even the Mac as we know it today exist? Maybe not, because sometimes the doors that close on us are the ones that keep us from stepping into our true potential. Think about your own life. Have you ever faced a rejection that at the time felt devastating, but later looking back, you realize it was actually the best thing that could have happened? Maybe you didn't get the job you desperately wanted, only to land 1 month later that was an even better fit. Maybe a relationship ended, and at first you were heartbroken, but later you met someone who truly understood and valued you. A woman once told me a story about her dream job. She had spent years working toward a position in a prestigious company. She was qualified, experienced, and passionate about it. When she got the interview, she thought, this is it. This is my moment. She walked in prepared, confident, but a week later, she got the dreaded email, we've decided to go with another candidate. She was crushed. For months, she replayed that interview in her head, wondering what she could have done differently. Then, out of the blue, a recruiter reached out to her with an opportunity she had never even considered, one that paid more, aligned better with her long-term goals, and gave her the work-life balance she never thought was possible. She took it, and years later, she looked back and realized had she gotten that original job, she never would have ended up in a career that truly made her happy. But here's the thing, in the moment, we don't see that. We only see the loss. We only feel the sting of rejection. That's why so many people get stuck, paralyzed by the fear of failure, afraid to try again. Because once you've had a door slammed in your face, it's easy to believe that all doors will close on you. But rejection is not failure. Rejection is information. It's a message telling you this isn't for you. And that's a good thing, because if it's not for you, that means something else is. There's a story about an athlete who trained for years, dedicating every ounce of his energy to making it to the Olympics. He was young, talented, determined, but just before the qualifiers, he suffered an injury that took him out of the competition. He was devastated. He thought his dream was over, but that injury forced him to pivot. It led him to coaching, where he discovered a passion for helping others reach their potential. Years later, he wasn't the one competing in the Olympics. He was coaching an athlete who was. And he realized this is where I was meant to be all along. Sometimes we hold on so tightly to a dream that we don't realize it's actually too small for us. We think we know what's best, but life has a way of revealing that we were aiming too low, settling for less than we deserve. Closed doors protect us. They keep us from walking into situations that aren't meant for us. They save us from relationships that would drain us, from jobs that would limit us, from opportunities that would keep us stuck. And yet, in the moment, all we see is the pain of what we lost instead of the possibility of what's ahead. So what do we do when a door closes? We shift our perspective. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? We ask, what is this preparing me for? Instead of seeing rejection as the end, we see it as a signpost pointing us in the right direction. There's a reason why some of the most successful people in the world have stories of rejection. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking creativity. J.K. Rowling was rejected by multiple publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Imagine if they had given up. Imagine if they had taken those closed doors as a final answer instead of a redirection. Your journey is no different. The doors that are closing in your life right now are not signs that you are failing. They are signs that something better is being prepared for you. The pain of today's rejection is setting you up for tomorrow's breakthrough. So don't get stuck in what didn't work out. Don't waste time mourning what wasn't meant for you. Instead, start looking forward. Start paying attention to what's coming next. Because when one door closes, it's not the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter, one you never could have written on your own. There's something frustrating about waiting. We live in a world where everything is instant messaging, instant access, instant results. So when progress feels slow, when the things we've been working so hard for seem just out of reach, it's easy to feel like we've hit a dead end. But what if waiting isn't a punishment? What if delays aren't meant to discourage us, but to prepare us? And think about the last time you were running late for something important. Maybe you got stuck in traffic or missed a flight. At the moment, it felt like the worst thing that could happen. But then something unexpected happened. Maybe the delay led you to meet someone who changed your life. Maybe it protected you from something you didn't even know was coming. We don't always see the purpose behind delays, but that doesn't mean they don't have one. Now, Joseph had a dream that one day he would lead, that his life had a greater purpose. But before that dream became reality, his life took a turn he never expected. His own brothers betrayed him, selling him into slavery. Just when things started to look better, he was thrown into prison for something he didn't do. Years passed. He could have given up. He could have decided that the dream he once had was never going to happen. But he didn't. He stayed faithful. And eventually he found himself exactly where he was meant to be, second in command over an entire nation. What if all the setbacks weren't actually setbacks? What if they were the training ground for the leadership he was destined for? If he had gone straight from being a shepherd to being a ruler, would he have had the wisdom, the strength, the resilience to lead? Probably not. The delays were not denials, they were preparation. Look at some of the most successful people in history, and you'll see the same pattern. Oprah was fired from her first job in television. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity. J.K. Rowling was rejected by publisher after publisher before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. If any of them had let frustration win, if they had quit because things were taking too long, the world would have missed out on their brilliance. But this isn't just about famous people. This is about you. That job you didn't get, that relationship that didn't work, that opportunity that slipped away, what if those weren't losses? What if they were making room for something better? What if the reason it's taking longer than expected is because what's coming is bigger than you imagined? The waiting is never wasted. The delays are never random. They are shaping you, strengthening you, positioning you. So instead of being discouraged, trust the process. Because when the right opportunity comes, you won't just be ready, you'll be unstoppable. There's something deeply unsettling about losing people. We build relationships, invest in friendships, and create bonds that feel like they should last forever. But life has a way of shifting, and suddenly the people we thought would always be there begin to drift away. It feels personal. It feels like something is wrong. But what if it's not? What if the very act of losing people is a sign that you are growing, evolving, and stepping into something greater? When a rocket launches into space, parts of it fall away as it reaches new heights. Not because the rocket is broken, but because those parts were never meant to go the entire journey. They served their purpose. They helped in the early stages, but if they remained attached, they would only weigh the rocket down. This is what happens in life. There are people who are meant for certain seasons, and when that season ends, they let go. It's not always because they don't care. It's not always because something went wrong. It's simply because they were never meant to be part of the next chapter. It's easy to take it personally when people leave. We ask ourselves, what did I do wrong? Why don't they support me? Why do I feel so alone? But not everyone will understand the journey you're on. Not everyone is meant to. Sometimes the elevation in your life will create separation from those who are comfortable staying where they are. You're growing in ways they may not relate to. You're moving in directions they may not want to go. And that's okay. There's a reason why some of the most significant transitions in life come with loneliness. When someone steps into leadership, when someone starts a business, when someone pursues a dream that seems bigger than what others can see, the crowd begins to thin. The late night phone calls become less frequent. The invitations stop coming. The people who once cheered for you might even begin to question or criticize you. But it's not because you're doing something wrong, it's because you're stepping into something new. One of the hardest truths to accept is that loyalty doesn't always mean longevity. Just because someone was important to you in one season doesn't mean they are meant to stay forever. Some friendships are scaffolding necessary for building, but temporary by design. Others are foundational, meant to last a lifetime. The key is knowing the difference. Holding on to people who are no longer aligned with your growth will only slow you down. It will keep you anchored to a version of yourself you've outgrown. And the longer you fight to keep them, the more resistance you'll feel. Letting go isn't an act of rejection, it's an act of trust. Trust that the right people will walk with you in the next season. Trust that new relationships, ones that align with where you're headed, will come. When people start leaving, don't chase them. Don't beg them to stay. Instead, bless and release. Thank them for the role they played in your life, honor the memories, and then let them go with peace. Because what's ahead requires you to be fully present, fully focused, and fully prepared. And you can't take unnecessary weight with you. There's a pattern that happens just before something great is about to unfold. Everything seems to get harder. The obstacles feel bigger, the challenges come faster. It feels like the very thing you're trying to achieve is slipping further away. But this isn't a coincidence, it's a test, a refining process, a moment designed to see if you're truly ready for what's ahead. And think about the last time you faced real resistance. Maybe you were working on a project that you poured your heart into, only for it to fall apart at the last minute. Maybe you were pursuing a dream and kept hearing no after no. Maybe life hit you all at once, unexpected expenses, conflicts, health struggles, everything stacking up, making you question if you're even on the right path. The natural reaction is to assume something is wrong, that maybe you've made a mistake or that you're not cut out for this. But what if the struggle isn't a sign that you should quit? What if it's proof that you're on the verge of something bigger? There's a reason diamonds don't form without pressure. There's a reason gold has to go through fire to be refined. Strength isn't built in comfort. Resilience isn't developed when things are easy. It's only when you're tested, truly tested, that you discover what you're capable of. When Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first job in television, she could have let that moment define her. She could have accepted that maybe she wasn't meant for TV, but she kept going. She leaned into the rejection, into the resistance, and used it as fuel. Today, she is one of the most powerful voices in the world. The same thing happens time and time again with people who refuse to let their struggles break them. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 different publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before perfecting the light bulb. What if they had stopped at the first sign of hardship? What if they had decided that failure meant they weren't meant for greatness? The world would have been robbed of their impact. The test you're facing right now is not there to defeat you. It's there to prepare you. If you want to build muscle, you don't lift the lightest weight and call it a day. You challenge yourself. You lift heavier, even when it hurts, because you know that's the only way to grow. The same is true in life. The moments that stretch you, that make you uncomfortable, that make you question everything, those are the moments that build the strength you need for what's ahead. Breakthroughs don't come to those who stop when it gets hard. They come to those who keep going, who push through the doubt, who refuse to let the pressure crush them. So if you're in a season where everything feels difficult, don't give up. Lean in. Because what's waiting for you on the other side is worth every test you're facing right now. There comes a moment in life when something inside you stirs. It's subtle at first, a whisper, a feeling, an idea that won't go away. But over time, it grows. It turns into restlessness, a sense that you were made for more, that where you are is no longer enough. It's a push towards something new, something unknown. And then right alongside that feeling, fear shows up. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping into something without knowing where it will lead. Fear has a way of keeping us stuck. It convinces us that playing it safe is the right choice, that staying where we are is better than risking the unknown. But when we look at history, at the people who have changed the world, at the ones who have built something truly great, there's one common thread. They all had to take a step of faith before they saw the outcome. They had to move before everything made sense. They had to act before they had all the answers. Moses stood before the Red Sea with an army behind him, an impossible situation in front of him, and no clear solution. But instead of waiting for the waters to part first, he stepped in. And it was that step, his decision to move forward in faith, that triggered the miracle. Peter, when he saw Jesus walking on water, had a choice. He could stay in the boat where it was safe, or he could step out into something completely unnatural, completely beyond human capability. He chose to step out, and for a brief moment, he did what no one thought was possible. It's the same for every person who has ever done something significant. No one is handed a roadmap in advance. No one gets a guarantee that everything will work out. The business owner who takes the leap doesn't know for certain that their idea will succeed. The writer who sits down to write their first book has no promise that anyone will read it. The artist who creates doesn't know if the world will care. But they all feel something, a deep internal pull that says, this is what you're supposed to do. And they move despite the fear. The difference between those who stay stuck and those who step into something great isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward anyway. Fear asks, what if I fail? But the real question to ask is, what if I succeed? What if that business changes lives? What if that book inspires someone? What if that risk leads to a life more fulfilling than you ever imagined? And if you feel that pull inside you right now, don't ignore it. That's your sign. That's your moment. It won't always make sense. It won't always feel logical, but the greatest things in life rarely do. The opportunity, the breakthrough, the next chapter, it's waiting for you, but you have to take the first step. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's shifting. Things that once made sense no longer do. The opportunities you thought were yours slip through your fingers. People you trusted start to drift away. Delays and setbacks seem to meet you at every turn. It's frustrating. It's confusing. And if you don't know what's happening, it's easy to think something is wrong. But what if nothing is wrong? What if instead of falling apart, everything is actually falling into place? We've been conditioned to believe that when things get hard, we're on the wrong path. That if doors are closing, it must mean we're not good enough. That if people leave, we've done something wrong. But in reality, these moments are not signs of failure. They're signs of preparation. They're evidence that something bigger is on its way. Closed doors are not punishments. They are redirections. Think about the times in your life when something didn't work out the way you wanted. Maybe you didn't get the job you were desperate for. Maybe a relationship ended that you thought would last forever. Maybe an opportunity you had been counting on simply disappeared, and in the moment it felt like the worst possible outcome. But then months or even years later, you look back and realize, thank God that didn't work out. Steve Jobs, the man who co-founded Apple, was fired from his own company. Imagine what that must have felt like. He built something from nothing, only to be told he wasn't needed anymore. But instead of letting that define him, he used it as an opportunity. He started another company, which led him to acquire Pixar, and eventually Apple brought him back. And because of the lessons he learned during that time away, he returned stronger, and Apple became one of the most valuable companies in the world. So many of the world's greatest success stories are built on rejection, failure, and setbacks. And if you're in a season right now where things feel like they're slipping away, maybe it's not because you're being pushed out. Maybe it's because you're being positioned for something greater, but it's not just about closed doors. It's about delays too. We live in a world that expects instant results. We want things to happen now on our timeline when we feel ready. And when they don't, we assume something is wrong. But delays are not denials. They are divine timing at work. Joseph had a dream that he was destined for greatness, but before he reached that destiny, his life took a detour. He was betrayed, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison for something he didn't do. If anyone had the right to give up, it was him, but he didn't. He trusted the process even when it didn't make sense. And because he did, he ended up in a position of power that allowed him to save an entire nation. What if your delays are not meant to discourage you, but to prepare you? What if the very things you see as obstacles are actually setting you up for something greater than you ever imagined? The truth is, before something big happens, things get hard. You will face challenges you didn't see coming. You will feel pressure like never before. You will wonder if you're even on the right path. But that's because pressure is what creates strength. Diamonds don't form without pressure. The gold isn't refined without fire. Muscles don't grow without resistance. Every great breakthrough in history was preceded by a period of struggle. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. J.K. Rowling was rejected over and over before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. If any of them had given up in their darkest moments, the world would have never known their brilliance. If you're facing challenges right now, if you're feeling resistance, if everything seems to be getting harder instead of easier, it's not a sign to quit. It's a sign to keep going, because the test is not there to break you. It's there to build you. But there's one more thing that happens before something big, something even more powerful than closed doors, delays, and challenges. You will feel a deep, undeniable urge to step out in faith. There will come a moment when you feel something stirring inside of you, a knowing deep in your gut that it's time to move. It won't always make sense. It won't always be logical, but it will be there. Maybe it's an idea that won't leave your mind. Maybe it's a dream you've carried for years but never acted on. Maybe it's a business, a book, a career change, a move, something that feels so right and yet so terrifying at the same time. And right alongside that urge, fear will show up. Fear will whisper, what if you fail? What if you're not ready? What if people laugh at you? And that's the moment you have a choice. You can let fear keep you where you are, or you can ask a better question. What if I succeed? No one who has ever done something great has done it without fear. No one has had all the answers before they started. Every great leader, every great innovator, every great thinker had to take a step of faith before they saw the outcome. Moses had to step into the Red Sea before it parted. Peter had to step out of the boat before he could walk on water. The Wright brothers had to take off before they knew if they could fly. So if you feel that pull inside you right now, don't ignore it. That feeling is not random. That feeling is your sign. It's your invitation. And yes, it will be scary. Yes, you will have doubts, but the greatest things in life always require a leap of faith. If you're in a season where doors are closing, people are leaving, delays are happening, and life feels uncertain, don't panic. It doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're being prepared. Something big is coming. And when it does, you'll look back at this moment and realize it wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Trust the process, stay the course, and get ready, because what's coming is bigger than anything you've ever imagined. Thank you.